On this Monday night, Donald Trump clears a huge legal hurdle. The U.S. Supreme Court ruling that keeps him on the ballot.
It was a very important decision. Were very well crafted.
The ripple effects, and does this end the questions about whether he engaged in insurrection? Contagious and making a comeback.
We're really aiming to stop it.
The solutions to stop measles from spreading in Canada. And heads up. The horrifying highway disaster that everyone somehow survived. Plus, rocking the boat.
My job is basically to fly the boat off the water.
The Canadians competing in the Grand Prix of sailing.
Global National with Donna Friesen.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. Another hurdle has been cleared for former U.S. President Donald Trump to secure the Republican nomination. Colorado and some other states were trying to kick him off the ballot in their primaries, accusing him of engaging in insurrection after he lost the 2020 election. But the U.S. Supreme Court has ruled individual states cannot bar candidates from federal office. Trump immediately posted on social media, "Big win for America." It's certainly a big win for Trump. Tomorrow is Colorado's primary, and this means legal efforts to derail him from appearing on the ballot have failed. Jackson Proskow is in Washington with our top story tonight. Jackson.
Well, Donna, the decision is exactly what Donald Trump wanted, and it means that voters and not the courts will ultimately decide who's eligible to be the next president. The High Court delivered clarity to voters one day before they head to the polls, ruling states do not have the power to remove Donald Trump or any other presidential candidate from the ballot.
Essentially, you cannot take somebody out of a race because an opponent would like to have it that way.
The decision reverses a ruling from Colorado's Supreme Court, which had disqualified Trump, arguing he committed an insurrection and was therefore ineligible from holding office under the U.S. Constitution. Several other states had followed suit.
In terms of taking an individual off the ballot by making a decision that they're an insurrectionist, that is the thing that the court takes off the table for states in this decision.
A slim majority of justices determined it should be up to Congress to decide when and how to invoke the insurrection clause, but they offered no other roadmap, making it unlikely that Trump will be disqualified by anyone other than voters. It's only a partial victory for the former president. The court did not weigh in on whether Trump actually committed an insurrection.
This is not the Supreme Court supporting President Trump or some argument that he did not commit a crime. That is left for another day. It's actually ultimately potentially left to a jury.
Before that happens, the High Court will have to rule on Trump's claims that he is immune from prosecution.
Who wants to leave office and go through what I've gone through?
A decision will determine whether he ever stands trial for his efforts to overturn the 2020 election. As with the Colorado ballot case, the court has vowed to move quickly.
They seem to get that their opinions are important just for sort of clarity for the voting public.
And Jackson is with me now. Jackson, there are so many hurdles. This ruling means no U.S. states can take Trump off their ballots. But does this completely clear the path for him to become the Republican nominee for president?
Well, he still has to win that nomination. Tomorrow is Super Tuesday, when 15 states hold their primaries, including Colorado. It seems quite likely that Trump will sweep those states. The question is, can his chief rival, Nikki Haley, dig into his numbers some way, somehow, that shows that he still has real problems? And Donna, that's what we'll be watching very closely. Haley did manage to win the primary here in Washington over the weekend. Can she pull it off in other states, though? It's not so clear.
All right, Jackson in Washington, thanks. Convicted murderer Luca Magnotta has been moved from a maximum security prison to a medium security facility. Magnotta, now 41, was found guilty in 2014 of killing and dismembering Concordia University student Jun Lin. The Correctional Service of Canada says Magnotta met the criteria for a transfer to a medium security facility and says the jail has a well-defined perimeter with high fences, is strictly guarded 24/7, and is patrolled by armed officers. He continues to serve an indeterminate life sentence. A 22-year-old former Massachusetts Air National Guardsman charged with leaking highly classified information has pleaded guilty. Jack Teixeira was arrested last year at his mother's house after accessing hundreds of documents, including about Russia's war in Ukraine and Israel's spy agency. He shared those with gamers on the Discord messaging app. Despite being a low-level airman, Teixeira had top-secret security clearance. As part of the plea deal, prosecutors say they're seeking a 16-year prison sentence. In Edmonton, a security guard accused of firing a rifle and lobbing firebombs inside City Hall in January now faces terrorism-related charges. 28-year-old Bizani Sarvar is charged with counseling the commission of terrorism and possession of property for terrorist purposes. RCMP also say 8 other charges against him involving arson, mischief, and firearms also constitute terrorism offenses. Sarvar was arrested January 23rd, accused of opening fire inside City Hall and throwing Molotov cocktails. No one was hurt. There has been an alarming rise in cases of measles around the world, and public health officials in Canada are now sounding the alarm. The number of confirmed cases is low, about 15 in Canada, 10 of them in Quebec, and 7 of those are believed to have come from community spread. There are 4 cases in Ontario and 1 in BC. Measles is a highly contagious viral disease, and it's likely those numbers will rise because measles vaccination rates in Canada are slipping. Heather Yourex-West explains why that matters and how you can protect yourself.
Without vaccine protection, measles is one of the most difficult infections to contain. And in Montreal, there are fears this disease could spread fast.
Does it make you nervous to see that there's that kind of disease going around?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. I think people should be more vaccinated.
According to health officials, out of 10 cases this year in Quebec, 7 are unrelated to travel, marking the first time the province has seen local measles transmission since 2019.
The minute you see local transmission, there is already concern there. It means that we haven't been able to contain it with our 95% population protection. And so we're really aiming to stop it at 10.
The problem is, in some areas of Montreal, vaccine coverage is dangerously low, between 40 and 50% at some schools. It's why the province is stepping up its vaccination campaigns, asking everyone to ensure their family's shots are up to date.
Without those vaccinations, you're putting infant children in our province at risk of very, very serious illness.
BC Premier David Eby called a potential measles outbreak in his province terrifying after officials confirmed British Columbia's first case of the year. But in neighbouring Alberta, doctors are especially concerned. When it comes to measles, the Prairie Province has the lowest vaccine coverage rate in the country.
We do have this really bad combination of suboptimal rates plus a drop in vaccine confidence and a highly infectious agent. It is a very legitimate cause for worry.
Doctors say those with 2 doses of vaccine have nothing to fear, but the vaccine isn't available to infants under 6 months, putting them and those with compromised immunity at risk if measles is allowed to spread. Heather Yourex-West, Global News, Calgary.
It's early March and spring is around the corner, but it feels like it arrived early in southern Ontario. In Toronto, it hit 16 degrees today, beating a high set in 1974. Hamilton went further beyond its record for that same year, hitting 21 degrees this afternoon. It was 20 degrees in London, breaking that city's record set back in 1966. Head west to the prairies, though, and people are still digging out after a huge snowstorm hit the region over the weekend. In Saskatchewan, the Saskatoon area got more than 40 centimeters of snow. Many roads and schools are closed today. It was a similar situation in western Manitoba, though Winnipeg managed to avoid the worst of it. Places like Brandon got up to 29 centimeters of snow. And this is California's Sierra Nevada mountain region, a powerful blizzard that brought hurricane-force winds, blinding whiteouts, and more than 2 meters of snow to some areas is now on its way out. But another more moderate storm is expected to keep snow falling there through Wednesday. A Global News investigation has uncovered more troubling allegations that some for-profit group home companies in Ontario are aggressively targeting Indigenous youth, particularly children from Nunavut. The territory has so few options for kids in need, the government sends many youth south, mostly to Ontario. They also go to Alberta and Manitoba. As our chief investigative correspondent Carolyn Jarvis reports, foster and group home companies in Ontario are billing millions every year to take in Nunavut kids.
Connie McIntosh was a social service worker in Nunavut when the phone rang. They would call up and go, "We got like 3 empty beds."
On the other end, she says, a private group home company in Ontario.
"What do you expect me to do? Go out and apprehend 3 kids to send them to you?"
This former group home worker says their company wanted to land contracts like those. We've agreed to protect their identity because they fear reprisal.
Did you feel like they were actively trying to target or recruit Indigenous youth?
150%, absolutely.
Why?
It's more money.
Over 4 years, the government of Nunavut awarded $41 million to residential care companies in the south, nearly $26 million of that in Ontario. Contracts signed because there are so few options for kids in the child welfare system within the territory.
Ontario group homes are well aware of this gap in services and resources and essentially are vultures, so they can charge anything.
Global News obtained and analysed roughly 8,000 pages of contracts between the government of Nunavut and child welfare companies outside the territory and found that from 2019 to 2021, Nunavut paid on average 53% more per day for a child to live in an Ontario group home compared to what Children's Aid Societies in Ontario paid.
It's mind-blowing. I cannot believe that. That is current-day colonialism in practice.
84 children and youth from Nunavut were living in out-of-territory placements, including foster and group homes, as of January 2024, removed from community and culture. Some had to leave because of medical needs requiring specialized care, others because they didn't have a safe home or their personal struggles meant they needed a new one.
It was horrible.
Inside those homes, the experience varied greatly, according to former workers and youth.
It's very lonely. Like I couldn't really talk to anybody or like go have something to eat whenever I wanted.
Some companies made efforts to offer culture, therapy, and warmth. Others were punitive and cold, former workers say.
They're not in prison.
But did it seem like a prison?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The companies we investigated defend what they charged Nunavut, saying Ontario's rates are outdated and not reflective of actual operational costs. Nunavut's Department of Family Services, meanwhile, has vowed to fix the system. Carolyn Jarvis, Global News, Iqaluit.
You can read more about the alarming findings of our investigative series. There's a special page on our website, globalnews.ca/profiting off kids. A Canadawide multi-million-dollar settlement with the tech giant Apple has been approved by a Supreme Court judge in British Columbia. A class action lawsuit accused Apple of providing software updates that deliberately slowed down the performance of older iPhones. Apple agreed to pay up to $14.4 million, but says the settlement is not an admission of wrongdoing. Depending on how many people apply, claimants will receive between $17 and $150. The settlement applies to residents in every province except Quebec. Applicants will have to provide a serial number for their impacted phone, which includes versions of the iPhone 6 and 7. The cost of living is top of mind for most Canadians, and the federal finance minister, Chrystia Freeland, will table the latest federal budget on April 16th. Haiti's state of emergency coming up, why that country has descended deeper into chaos, plus heart-stopping moments on this mountain highway. There is a crisis underway in Haiti. The Canadian embassy there is now temporarily closed, and on Sunday night, the Haitian government declared a state of emergency and imposed a nighttime curfew. It's in response to a surge of armed gang attacks throughout the capital of Port-au-Prince in the last few days. Several people have been killed, including police officers. There was also a jailbreak at the country's largest prison. Since the president's assassination more than 2 years ago, Haiti has been in a state of chaos, overwhelmed by violence. Now, police officers from Kenya are preparing to move in as part of a UN-backed stabilization force. Mike Armstrong explains.
With every week, Haiti slides deeper into chaos. Gangs have in recent days attacked the country's container port, international airport, and central bank. Well, Saturday they stormed Haiti's 2 biggest prisons. One facility held more than 4,000 criminals. This prison worker says there were less than 100 left. About 80% of the capital, Port-au-Prince, is controlled by gangs, and one of the most powerful gang leaders is calling for a revolution. former police officer himself, known as Barbecue, is calling on Haitian police and soldiers to arrest the acting prime minister.
What this mission is bringing.
Now, that man is believed to be returning from Africa. Ariel Henry was in Kenya Friday signing a security deal. About 1,000 Kenyan police officers are set to be deployed to Haiti in the coming weeks.
We are making this response because it is what is right.
Kenya stepped forward to lead the UN-backed mission when no other country would. The US last year pressed Canada to step forward. Ottawa declined. Canada's former ambassador says the Kenyans will have their hands full.
They may control, secure the main assets, but the country is in a chaos at this moment.
Now, there have been protests, with some Haitians questioning whether Henry has the legitimacy to even make a deal with Kenya. He was only sworn in after the president's assassination in 2021. The country's former director of elections says Henry has lost the confidence of the country.
Where Prime Minister Ariel is now, by himself, it is impossible for him to organize elections.
Haiti appears to be stuck in a vicious circle. It needs security for political stability and political stability for security. It has neither. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Montreal.
Global News has learned Canada is planning to send decommissioned rockets slated for disposal to Ukraine. Tens of thousands of ground attack rockets are waiting to be demolished at a military base south of Saskatoon. In an exclusive interview last month, Ukraine's top military intelligence officer urged Canada to donate them to help fight Russian forces and save Canadian taxpayers the cost of destroying them. Defense Minister Bill Blair says they're working on it.
We are doing the work right now to make sure that those munitions can be safely transported. And once that has been determined, and that should be only a matter of days, we will move as quickly as possible to get all of that resource to Ukraine as quickly as possible.
It's estimated about 8,000 of the rockets are in pristine condition, and some are still fitted with warheads. Ukraine says they would be used in attack helicopters and ground launchers to target Russian tanks and artillery. Close call. Ahead, a terrifying rock slide in Peru and the truck drivers who lived through it. A team of UN experts has concluded there are reasonable grounds to believe sexual violence, including gang rape, occurred during the Hamas attacks on Israel on October 7th. Hamas has repeatedly rejected accusations sexual violence took place. Investigators say they're also looking into allegations Palestinians in Israeli detention have been sexually assaulted. And in Gaza, the World Health Organization says at least 15 children have died in recent days from malnutrition and dehydration. Hopes for a ceasefire have dwindled with news Israel did not send a delegation to negotiations in Egypt. Israel says it's waiting to learn which hostages are alive before it participates. France broke new ground today, becoming the first country to guarantee a woman's right to an abortion. The Eiffel Tower lit up as activists applauded the move to enshrine abortion in the French Constitution. Lawmakers overwhelmingly approved the bill in a special vote at the Palace of Versailles today. President Emmanuel Macron promised the measure after the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade in 2022. Women have had a legal right to an abortion in France since 1974. In Peru, there's been a terrifying rock slide along a mountain highway, and it was caught on camera. A dash cam caught the horrifying disaster playing out over the weekend. The truck ahead was flattened, and shortly after, giant boulders hit the truck, recording this video. Both drivers somehow survived. The highway in Peru was blocked for several hours. It's believed heavy rain may have destabilized the terrain. Vying for victory next, meet the Canadian flight controller in one of the world's most exciting sailing competitions. A sailing competition is taking off that's unlike any other, and it's coming to Halifax. Sail GP uses high-performance foiling catamarans that look like they're flying across the water. As Heidi Petracek explains, one of Team Canada's members has generations of sailors behind him and a connection to the Royal Canadian Navy.
Look at the speed of that Canadian boat.
Reaching speeds upwards of 54 knots or 100 kilometers per hour, with turns pushing 3 Gs.
Oh, that was a really tight moment there, Phil.
Sail GP is the Grand Prix of sailing, teams vying for victory in events around the world, including Team Canada, the country's first professional sailing team. Bill Gooderham, its flight controller.
So my job is basically to fly the boat off the water somewhere between 1 meter and 1.5 meters.
It's not for the faint of heart and takes experienced sea legs.
I always call sailing as sort of the family business.
Ontario's Gooderham family is sailing royalty. Bill's grandfather competed in 2 Olympics. His father is a former world champion. And in the Maritimes, a piece of the Gooderham legacy has an active place in the Royal Canadian Navy.
It was built in 1921, and it was a yacht for George Gooderham.
That was Bill's great-great-grandfather. During the Second World War, George H. Gooderham loaned that boat to the Navy and sold it to them for $1 after the war to use as a naval training vessel. HMCS Oriole has been in the fleet ever since.
Probably the best dollar we ever spent because it's still in the Navy, and for all the sailors that have sailed on it, it has a special place in their hearts. G'day, how are you doing?
Bill's father once took the Orioles' helm, and he hopes his turn comes this summer when Sail GP comes to Halifax.
Here in Halifax, we want to go out and smash it.
He moved to Halifax just last fall, making him eager to win in the place that's now both home to him and HMCS Oriole. Heidi Petracek, Global News, Halifax.
And that's Global National for this Monday. I'm Donna Friesen. Tonight's Here Canada is the sun peeking through the clouds in Blue Rocks, Nova Scotia. Thanks for watching. Hope to see you here again tomorrow. Bye-bye.